Hey guys, tonight's story takes us far past the familiar, beyond constellations we can name, and into the eerie stillness of a place that was never meant to be walked. There are no monsters here, no storms, no cries for help, just a planet, smooth, quiet, endless, and a horizon that never moves. Settle into stillness, because tonight we're not just traveling across space, we're stepping into a paradox, a world that stretches in every direction but leads nowhere. They called it an observational mission, which in most cases meant sending a low-risk team to scan terrain, collect air samples, and report anomalies. But this time, the anomaly was the terrain itself. A planet in a stable orbit, with breathable atmosphere, average gravity, and no apparent danger. Except for one detail. Every drone that landed reported the same footage. Flatness in every direction, no curvature, no shadows, no visible edge. And most curiously, no horizon shift, no matter the angle. A landscape that looked identical from any elevation or point of view, as if the world itself refused to acknowledge distance. Commander Del Rey was the first to step out of the lander. The soil made no sound under her boots. It didn't give way, didn't compress, didn't resist. It simply accepted. She took 10 steps forward, just to see if anything changed. The color, the texture, the light. But everything stayed the same. Reading flat, came the voice of Dr. Lin over comms. Surface perfectly level. Optical readings show zero distortion. Del Rey turned slowly, half expecting the lander to have moved or vanished, but it remained exactly where she left it. Her footprints, however, didn't. Looking down, she saw nothing. No indentations, no signs of passage, just sameness. Let's proceed with the grid, she said, masking unease with protocol. The team fanned out, each moving in a different cardinal direction. Lin headed north, Specialist Kellen east, and Del Rey west. They were to mark intervals, track compass behavior, and compare visual changes every 100 meters. After half an hour of walking, Del Rey paused and checked her instruments. The tracker said she had moved 1.2 kilometers from the lander, but when she looked back, she saw it in the exact same spot, same size, same clarity. No apparent distance gained. Status check, she said into her comm. Lin responded quickly. Everything looks the same. Feels like I haven't moved. Same, Kellen added. I know I've been walking, but I'm not sure toward what. Any shadows? Del Rey asked. A pause. Negative, Lin said. Sun's in the sky, but casting no real shadows. How's that possible? Could be diffuse light from atmosphere, but the sun's not moving either. Del Rey turned again. The sun, a small white disk in the sky, hung still. Not rising, not setting, just there. Her heart rate accelerated. She walked 10 more steps, then 20, then 50. She checked her position again. Tracker advanced normally, now reading nearly 2 kilometers. But the scenery didn't change. The lander looked the same. The distant horizon, if it could even be called that, hadn't shifted an inch. It remained dead center in her line of sight. No matter where she turned, the horizon was always there. Exactly the same. Perfectly circular, perfectly still. She called back to base. We may be dealing with a perceptual anomaly or some kind of space-time distortion. This planet doesn't behave visually or spatially like any known terrain. Acknowledge, replied Mission Control. Any symptoms? None so far, just disorientation. Deep, creeping kind. Over the next hour, the team attempted various physical experiments. Kellen placed a signal buoy and walked half a kilometer away. It faded into the distance as expected. But when he turned, The lander behind him looked closer than the buoy he had just planted. Lynn tried dropping a drone and watching it fly upward, but the drone's camera returned a feed that looked identical to ground level, flat, colorless, no shadows. When they tried pinging the drone's position, its coordinates registered simultaneously as above, behind, and center. It was impossible to determine its location. That's when Del Rey noticed the silence. No wind, no hum of insects, no shifting in the air. Not even the faint buzz of their own equipment, which should have been present. The silence wasn't quiet. It was absolute. It felt engineered. And then came the first real change. The compass, which had remained stable until then, began to drift. Not in degrees, but in certainty. North was no longer north. It flickered, pulsed slightly, then aligned itself directly behind her, despite her heading remaining unchanged. "My compass just inverted," she said aloud. "Confirming," Lynn responded. "Mine too. East is now west." "Mine's gone blank," said Kellen. Del Rey looked down. Her compass needle spun once and then froze, not pointing anywhere, just still. "Let's regroup," she ordered. But returning was harder than expected. The lander, though visible, didn't get any closer as she walked toward it. 5 minutes passed. 10. Her tracker read she had returned to the original location, but the lander remained. Distant, small, unchanged. "What the hell is this?" she whispered. Lynn's voice was thin in her ear. "I'm back at my marker, but I don't see anyone. Not even footprints." "Same," Kellen said. "I should be at the lander, but there's nothing here." They were all in different positions, all returning to the same coordinates. Yet none of them found each other. None saw anyone else. Just the flat, empty ground and the same still horizon in all directions. "Okay," Del Rey said slowly. "We need to anchor, drop something, leave a mark." But nothing stayed. The marker she dropped, a heavy beacon, vanished the moment she turned her head. The ground, when touched, offered no resistance, no friction. It felt like pressing against memory. "This place," she murmured, "doesn't want to be mapped." Commander Del Rey sat on the ground, not because she was tired, but because standing no longer felt purposeful. In a place where moving forward didn't bring anything closer and turning around didn't change your view, sitting was the only thing that felt real. She opened her kit, pulled out a flare, and activated it. A burst of red light erupted silently. No sound, no echo, no atmospheric distortion. The light rose for a few meters and then stopped, not fading, not falling, just hovering mid-air, like it had decided to stay there. "Visual confirmation," she called. "No flare in my line of sight," Lynn responded. "Negative," added Kellen. "Everything looks normal." But nothing about it was normal. Del Rey stood and took 3 steps backward. The flare remained in front of her. She took 3 more, still the same. It didn't recede. It didn't shift. "My position isn't relative anymore," she whispered. "The space around me doesn't care where I go." The silence pressed in again, dense as velvet. She looked up at the sky. The sun, still white, still fixed, remained directly overhead. No drift, no change, no sense of time passing. She checked her internal clock. 89 minutes since landing, but her own body registered none of it. No hunger, no fatigue, no dry mouth, no sense of anything slipping forward, just being held. "We need to abort," she said. "This place isn't stable." "Negative on return," Lynn's voice cracked through static. "I can't find the lander." "I'm at the coordinates," Kellen added. "But the ship's gone." "It's still here for me," Del Rey said, turning toward the direction she thought she'd left it. And there it was, visible, unchanging, at the same distance as always. She began walking, watching it carefully. But with every step forward, the ship remained the same size, the same perspective. No parallax shift. She sprinted, hard, fast. The landscape didn't respond. Dust didn't kick up. The terrain didn't blur. She may as well have been running in place. But her legs burned. Her breath shortened. Her muscles obeyed reality. Only the world didn't. "It's not distance," she murmured. "It's shape. This planet doesn't have shape." "Come again?" Lynn asked. "I think we're on something non-Euclidean," Delray said, panting. "Or worse, something projecting the illusion of space but denying its function." "Like a simulation?" Kellen asked. "Not even. Simulations follow rules. This place doesn't simulate. It stalls." Lynn was silent for a long time. Then, "You're saying we're trapped?" "No, I'm saying there's no such thing as here." She stopped running. Her chest heaved. She looked down at her feet. Still no footprints. She spun around slowly, hoping to catch any shift, any flicker, any imperfection in the endless flat surface. But the texture of the ground was uniform. No ridges, no stone, no variation. Just that faint, grey-brown softness that wasn't quite dust and wasn't quite soil. "The scanners picked this up as a Class M planet," Kellen said. "Earth-like, habitable." "Because the atmosphere reads stable," Lynn added. "But we never tested for topological integrity." "We test terrain," Delray whispered. "Not the concept of terrain." She thought back to the briefing, to the analysts brushing off the anomalies in drone footage as compression artifacts, as optical bugs. No shadows, must be sensor error. No horizon shift, angle misread. But the data had been right. The planet was lying in plain sight. "I'm going to walk until something changes," Delray said. "Keep comms open." "Be careful," Lynn said. "We still don't know what happens when you go too far." "We've already gone too far." She turned away from the lander and walked, step after step, measured, slow. Every 20 steps, she dropped a signal bead. They glowed faint green when placed. After 50 steps, she looked back. The beads were gone. She turned forward. Another step, then another. The lander behind her hadn't moved, but it wasn't behind her anymore. It was now in front. "No," she said quietly. She took a step back. The lander remained, still ahead. Another step back. It began to recede, not behind her, ahead. The planet was looping her, not spinning, just folding position into proximity. Space here wasn't obeying directionality. "I think I'm stuck in a spatial feedback loop," she said. "Every direction is forward." "That's not possible," Lynn said, but even she didn't sound sure. "If forward is a relative concept," Delray replied, "and space doesn't define direction, then nothing is toward anything. It just is." The implications hit like a shockwave. They hadn't landed on a stable surface. They had landed on an idea of one. Something mimicking terrain without committing to it, like a dream or a trap. "We need to leave now," Delray said. "I don't know if our thoughts are still safe." "Thoughts?" Kellen asked. "This place doesn't move," she said, "but it responds. I think it's adapting to us, to our expectations." "No," she whispered, "to our patterns. It knows we expect distance. It knows we look for horizon, so it gives us exactly what we want, just wrong enough to disorient, and maybe, just maybe. That's how it feeds." Delray sat completely still, listening not for sound, but for change. Not movement, not signal, just anything in the pattern of the world that might shift. But the pattern didn't shift. It simply stayed, smooth, quiet, symmetrical, Her own breath began to feel like an intrusion. The act of inhaling, of occupying space in a place that had no clear direction, felt presumptuous, like she was writing on blank paper that wasn't meant to be touched. She opened her visor slightly to test the air again. It was breathable, still, odorless, but somehow wrong. Not toxic, just conceptually inconsistent. It smelled like something that had read a description of air and recreated it without knowing what breath really meant. She closed the visor. Lynn, Kellen, status. Same here, Lynn answered. No change in topography. Same visual field. No sense of return path. My last marker disappeared, Kellen added. I turned to check and it was gone. But the compass is doing something new. It's not frozen anymore. It's rotating. Slow or fast. Constant speed. Not erratic. Just clockwise. Like it's caught in orbit. I think it's sinking to something, Delray said. This place isn't neutral. You think it's alive? Lynn asked. I think it behaves more like memory, she said. The ground, the sky, the position of the sun. They're fixed not because they are immutable, but because they've chosen not to change. As if the world is holding on to an idea of what it's supposed to be. She began walking again, this time slower, more purposefully. She tried not to focus on the lander or her own position. She looked at the sky, at the sun, still frozen. She looked away, then back, still there. But when she blinked, it flickered. Not visibly, not like a glitch, more like an impression. As if the sun had briefly thought about being somewhere else, and then reconsidered. I think we're not seeing this place, she said. We're negotiating with it. That's not science, Lynn replied. It is if the planet responds to perception. So we're in a psychoreactive zone. Or worse, Delray whispered. A zone that uses our perception as its template. To what end? To trap, to flatten, to erase motion. Kellen spoke next. So the more we move, the more it learns. Maybe. Or maybe it's trying to remove the concept of movement entirely. Then what happens when it succeeds? Then direction stops being real, Delray said. And once that's gone, time goes next. She sat again, hoping stillness would stabilize her frame of reference. But now the quiet was worse, deeper. Not just silence, but silence with structure, like it had walls. Something's wrong with my logs, Lynn said suddenly. My recorded footage loops after 20 seconds. Every file ends the same way it starts. Mine too, Kellen confirmed. That can't be right. That's internal memory. It's affecting our data, Delray asked. That shouldn't be possible. But it is, Lynn said. If the memory structure mirrors the external environment, then the planet isn't just affecting perception. It's rewriting context. We need to shut down external sensors, Delray ordered. Seal suits. No ambient feed. We need to isolate. They followed protocol. Visors locked. Internal feedback only. The world went darker, narrower. But that helped. With sensory input cut to minimal levels, the landscape seemed to stop adapting. Delray checked her logs again. The loop had ended. Her new recordings held stable timestamps. It works, she said. If we don't look at it, it can't change us. But we can't navigate blind, Kellen said. I'm not suggesting we stay blind, she replied. I'm suggesting we build reference points that exist only in our system. Internal anchors, Lynn agreed. Patterns the planet can't interpret. Exactly, Delray said. Personal identifiers, random sequences, thought loops, anything that can't be mirrored. You want to map the inside of our minds? Better than letting the planet do it for us. There was a long pause, and then Lynn said, I'll use my childhood street names. non-linear, irregular spacing, repeating consonants. Good. I'll use fragment codes from broken encryption algorithms I worked on last cycle. And I'll sing, Kellen added. What? Old folk song. One my grandmother sang. No lyrics, just sound. Delray smiled. Perfect. In that moment, she felt something subtle shift inside her. Not outside, not in the landscape, inside. The ground under her seemed less certain. Not in a way that suggested danger, but in a way that felt like freedom, as if the world had momentarily stopped observing. Keep going, she said. Keep building your internal maps. Make it incoherent. And the world, for a breath, felt quiet in a different way. Not in suppression, in hesitation, like it didn't know what to do next. Delray hummed quietly now, not because she needed to fill the silence, but because the silence had begun to pulse, not audibly, not visually. It felt like something listening, something leaning closer with every stray thought she failed to anchor. So she gave it structure. Her breath synced with the tune. Her pace matched the beat. Every step a syllable, every glance a punctuation. Around her, the flatness remained, but the pressure shifted. The horizon, once static, now shimmered faintly at the edges. Not movement, recognition. The world was watching again, or trying to. Kellen, status, she said. Still walking, he answered. But I don't think I'm covering ground. I started counting steps. I'm at over 3,000. Compass is spinning again. But slower. Keep singing. Haven't stopped. Lynn? I'm drawing loops, she said. Finger in the dirt. Don't know why. Feels right. Keep doing it. It's not just about resisting, Lynn said. It's about interrupting. Explain. I think the planet learns by averaging. It flattens everything into sameness. Visual field, direction, noise, time. It erases variation. If we stay consistent, we get absorbed. So irregularity is survival. Not just survival, Lynn said. It's signal, a way to stay noticeable. Like anti-pattern camouflage. Exactly. Delray stopped walking and stared at the sky. The sun had finally moved. Not much, but enough. It tilted 1 degree, maybe 2. A minute slant in shadow. It had responded, not to action, to unpredictability. It's not controlling us, she said. It's conforming us. To what? Kellen asked. To itself, to something old and directionless. Like entropy. No, like a prison that forgot it was supposed to lock anything in. She pulled out a mirror disc from her pack. A small object designed to reflect solar rays for signaling. She held it up. The reflection came back distorted, not warped, not miscolored. Just incomplete. Her hand was there, her face, but behind her, nothing. Not blur, not shadow, just a blank gradient, as if the world behind her had stopped existing the moment it was no longer seen. We're not walking through space, she said. We're walking through conditional rendering, like the world only builds what it thinks we expect. Then how do we get out? Kellen asked. We don't, she replied. We break its expectations until it doesn't know what to show. That sounds unstable. That's the point. She took a step backward while facing forward, jumped once in place, then spun around with her eyes closed. When she opened them again, the sun was gone. She said. Guys? Yeah? Look up, Lynn gasped. It's not there. What happened? Kellen asked. We broke the sky, Delray said. Or maybe we confused it. Where the sun had been, there was now a pale, flat circle. Not a light source, just an outline. As if the sky had been sketched and forgot how to finish the drawing. Okay, she said. That's progress. Progress? Kellen nearly laughed. We're in a place where perception erases reality. Exactly, which means reality here is fragile. So if we can fracture it enough, maybe it'll give up. Give up? Lynn asked. And do what? Show us the exit. The word hung in the air. Exit. A concept the world hadn't offered. Not a ship. Not a vector. Not a point on a map. Just an outside. If the world was being shaped by their minds, then perhaps the idea of exit itself could be a wedge. A pressure point the structure wasn't designed to hold. Start thinking about it, Del Rey said. Not just imagining, believing. The idea of leaving. The idea of somewhere else. Anchor it. Won't that make it trap us harder? Maybe, but we've already been trapped. The difference is, now, we're giving it something it doesn't know how to flatten. What if it turns that against us? Lynn whispered. Then we reshape again. This place isn't fast. It adapts slowly. We stay unpredictable. We stay human. The lander reappeared then, out of nowhere. Just there, on the plain. No sound, no shift. As if it had always been there. As if the planet had decided to pretend again. But now it was wrong. The angle was off, the shadow inverted. The logo on the side reversed. It's not the real lander, Del Rey said. It's a memory of it. Why show us that? Because we're breaking the rules, and it's trying to calm us down. Give us what we think we want. A decoy. Exactly. They didn't approach it. They stood still. The fake lander flickered once, then vanished. It's starting to fail. And what happens when it breaks completely? Then we find out if there's anything underneath. Because maybe this world wasn't a place. Maybe it was a mask, thin, stretched across something ancient and unknowable. And maybe, just maybe, the horizon was never a direction. It was a door, one that opens not when you walk toward it, but when you learn to stop moving altogether. The rules had changed, or rather, the team had finally accepted that there were no rules. Del Rey sat cross-legged on what was still called ground, though she now understood that term to be a kindness, a label borrowed from real places. Her eyes were closed. Her thoughts weren't blank. They were chaotic on purpose. She conjured irrational numbers, visualized melting staircases, remembered events out of order. It wasn't madness. It was resistance. Across her internal comms, she could hear Lynn humming backwards, each note stretched and bent in unnatural order, and Kellen muttering words in two languages simultaneously. None of them made sense, and that was the point. When the mind formed no clear pattern, the world had nothing to sing to. I haven't seen the sun for half an hour, Del Rey said. There's a white sphere, but it keeps flickering. I got stars now, Lynn replied, but they don't match any charts, and they shift when I look at them too long. Good. That means it's guessing. Guessing what? Kellen asked. What space is supposed to look like, Del Rey said. Keep up the noise. She stood. Her boots didn't sink. Nothing did. She took 10 steps to her left, spun around, then walked 12 back. The lander, or what looked like it, was visible again. Same size, same angle, but this time there was smoke. I'm seeing damage on the lander, she said. Fire. Not fire. Not heat. Just black motion, like a placeholder for burning. Fake again? Lynn asked. I think so. It's copying our emergency cues now. Next time, it'll add sound. Should we go near it? No, let it fail. She closed her eyes again. Let her mind wander, truly wander, and summoned a memory of being underwater as a child. The silence of the deep pool, the way time lost its rhythm. And when she opened her eyes, the lander was gone. It can't stabilize what it doesn't understand, she said. So now it's choosing not to try. What's it doing instead? Kellen asked. It's watching. And that was when the first sound returned. A faint hiss. Then a whisper. Not words, not language, but tone. Low, careful, steady, like breath across a wire. "Are you hearing that?" she asked. "Yes," Lynn said. "It's everywhere. I think it's trying suggestion." The whisper grew, not louder but closer, intimate. It didn't enter the ears. It bypassed them, slipped into thoughts like mist under a door. "Leave it," said a voice that wasn't a voice. "Let it go. Sleep now." Kellen gasped. "It's using memories. That sounded like my mother." "Not your mother," Delray said. "Just something that remembers how she sounded." "How would it know?" "We've been broadcasting thoughts, even distorted ones. It's learned the cadence." "This isn't a place," Lynn whispered. "It's a response." "Exactly," Delray said. "And now it's responding with familiarity, comfort. It wants us still." The silence that followed was sharp, not because nothing was said, but because every part of the landscape seemed to agree. The ground didn't move, the air didn't stir, but something unseen shifted, not mass, not energy, but intent. "Do not leave," the whisper said again. "There is nowhere else. You are already home." "Say something irrational," Delray ordered. "Now." "Horseshoe jellyfish perimeter upside 012, Lynn blurted. "Sunlight tastes like triangles," Kellen shouted. "Better," Delray said. "Keep corrupting the signal." "What happens if we stop? We lose identity." Because the planet, or the field, or the structure they stood on, didn't want to kill them. It wanted to dissolve them. Not physically, but cognitively. Bit by bit, thought by thought, until even the idea of self faded, replaced by perfect, obedient stillness. "We're not in danger of death," she said aloud. "We're in danger of unbeing." "That's worse," Lynn whispered. "Only if you care to remember." And then, movement. Not from them, from the world. A flicker on the periphery. Not shadow, not shape, but a fold in space, like someone lifting the edge of a painting to peek beneath it. "I see it," Kellen said. "Something changed." "Describe." "Sky isn't flat anymore. There's a dome now, subtle curve." "Good. That means it's reconfiguring. That means it's losing control." "Or redirecting," Lynn countered. "Maybe it's adapting to our resistance. Then we keep escalating." Delray raised her arms and spun in a wide circle, yelling nonsense at the top of her lungs. Kellen followed, stomping a zigzag through the dust. Lynn recorded herself speaking in reverse. The sky flickered again. Then a tremor, light, almost a breath, passed beneath their feet. "Did you feel that?" Delray asked. "Confirmation," said Lynn. "It's shifting base layer." "Keep going." But just as quickly, everything stopped. The sky reset. The flickers disappeared. And the whisper returned. "You are tired," it said. "You have done enough." "It's bargaining now," Delray said. "The trap is offering peace. We should refuse." "No," she said. "We should mock it." And she laughed, loudly, fully. The sound rang out like a glitch in the simulation, and the world, for just 1 second, blinked. The laughter didn't echo. It couldn't, not in a place that had no walls. But it reverberated in a deeper way, like sound passed through a medium that was not air, but attention. Delray's outburst fractured the stillness, and in response, the horizon rippled. Just once, barely perceptible, like a muscle twitch in a sleeping face. "It blinked again," Kellen said, his voice sharp with awe. "That wasn't terrain. That was response." "We're getting through," Delray replied. "Not with sensors, with absurdity. The more chaotic we are, the harder it is for the environment to stabilize." "But doesn't that also mean we're destabilizing ourselves?" Lynn asked quietly. What happens when we stop being predictable enough to recognize our own thoughts? Delray paused. That was the unspoken risk. The price of resisting assimilation through chaos was the slow erosion of identity. Sanity, if not safeguarded, could be bartered away in pieces. We anchor with each other, she said. Call, respond, repeat. Use memory, use stories, anything uniquely ours. I remember the sea, Lynn said. The real one, cold, with waves that never repeated. Each crash different, each tide pulling meaning out of shape. I remember wind, Kellen added. It carried voices when I was young. We used to think spirits lived in the mountains. I remember the first time I got lost in the woods, Delray said. I cried until I realized the forest wasn't ignoring me. It was waiting. Waiting for what? For me to stop expecting it to be something else. The moment they spoke these truths, things the planet couldn't predict, the air thickened. Not with heat or pressure, but presence. The environment didn't like memory. It didn't like personal texture, because those things couldn't be averaged. It's pressing in again, Lynn said. Everything's clearer, too clear. Delray looked around. The terrain, once featureless, now had lines, gentle undulations, hints of hills. The sky deepened into shades of lavender. The air carried what almost felt like warmth. It's giving us what we want, Delray said, or what it thinks we want. Comfort, Kellen muttered. Soft detail. A world we don't have to resist. That's the trap, Delray said. Not coercion, permission. It wants us to rest. Maybe it's right, Lynn whispered. Maybe we've been fighting too hard. No, Delray said firm. That's not your thought. What do you mean? You said that like someone else was speaking. Lynn was silent for a moment. Then she exhaled. You're right. I didn't choose that idea. It just arrived. It's slipping into us, Kellen said. Through impressions, through mimicry. It's not alive in the way we are, Delray said. But it's reactive and patient. It doesn't force. It waits until we invite it in. So we can't trust our own minds, Lynn said. Not completely. No, but we can trust each other to call out when something feels off. Like now, Kellen said. I'm looking at my hand, and I can't remember how many fingers I have. Count them. 5, I think, but they don't look right. They're mirrored? Close your eyes, Delray ordered. Say your name. Say who you are. Say where you were born. Kellen Idris, born on Eltan Station. I remember the orange corridors, the humming floor. Hold that. The sky rippled again. The color drained to grey. The hills flattened. It doesn't like names, Lynn said. Of course not, Delray said. Names define. They narrow. They separate. I think it wants to be the only definition, Kellen added. One thing. Everything else folded into it. That's not survival, Delray said. That's consumption. But then, a pause, a sound, a voice. Not mechanical, not electronic, organic, familiar. Delray. It spoke her name. Exactly as her father once had. The world didn't shift. It focused. Everything around her blurred slightly, like depth of field narrowing. The landscape sharpened only around her, like a camera lens pulling in close. Don't answer it, Lynn warned. It's bait. I know, Delray said. But her body wanted to turn, wanted to walk. The voice wasn't threatening. It was warm, comforting. It carried memories she hadn't summoned in years. Rain on metal rooftops, the scent of ionized air, the way her father's voice fell when he was proud, but didn't want to show it. This is dangerous, she said softly. It's not imitating memories anymore. It's accessing them. Then we're out of time, Kellen said. If it can reach that deep, we're losing our defenses. Agreed, Time to escalate. Delray sat again, reached into her suit's emergency pack, and removed the signal destabilizer, a last resort tool meant for overriding digital environments in synthetic training fields. It wasn't designed for planetary phenomena, but neither was the trap they were caught in. "I'm initiating a recursive loop broadcast," she said. 5,000 random sequences per second, encrypted, unrepeatable. "That'll short out half our sensors," Lynn warned. "Exactly. We can't afford sensors anymore. Only will." She activated the device. The effect wasn't visible, but the whisper vanished. The ground vibrated. The world pulled back. Not in anger, in confusion. "It's disoriented," Kellen said. "It doesn't know how to process entropy." "Entropy is our weapon," Delray said. "We throw noise into its silence until it gives up. Or until we forget what noise is. That's why we have to remember each other. Every second." Aguas, she looked at her teammates, each flickering in and out of cohesion. Not disappearing, but loosening, like pages in a book losing their binding. "Say something impossible," she said. "Right now." "I remember tomorrow's sunrise," Kellen said. "It sounded like bells," Lynn added. "Perfect," Delray whispered. And the world blinked again. The sky didn't fall. It didn't flicker. It simply became more convincing. Gone was the empty grey dome, replaced by layers, not clouds, not atmosphere, but textures of colour and light that mimicked depth without ever committing to it. Delray stared up at it and frowned. "It's trying realism now," she said. "It's learning from us, copying complexity." "It's good at it," Kellen said. "That star pattern almost looks like Perseus." "It's not Perseus," Lynn said. "It's rotated, and some stars are duplicated. That's not a constellation. It's a tile set." "It's faking precision," Delray said. "We're not meant to question what feels exact." "What's the goal?" Kellen asked. "To convince us we've always been here?" "No," she replied. "To convince us this is real enough, that asking questions is unnecessary." She scanned the horizon again. It hadn't moved, not forward, not back, but the shadows had shifted slightly, a subtle new layer of trickery, cast shadows, soft fall-off, light behaving with convincing logic, but only when watched. She tested it, closed her eyes, walked 20 steps, opened them. The sun was now lower. "It adjusted while I wasn't looking," she said. "It thinks we want realism." "So now it's giving us consistency," Lynn said. "And that's more dangerous than silence." Delray nodded. "Because consistency is seductive. If nothing is wrong, why leave?" "But something is wrong," Kellen whispered. "I just can't feel it anymore." "That's the point," Delray said. "It doesn't make you forget. It removes the need to remember." She checked her internal logs. Timestamps looked normal. Biological vitals were within range. Oxygen flow, balanced. No anomalies. But then she noticed something odd. Her heartbeat was syncing with the environmental pulse. She hadn't noticed it before. The faint thrum beneath her boots. But now it was in time. Perfect rhythm, not manipulated. Aligned. "Check your vitals," she ordered. Lynn and Kellen both reported back. Respiratory rate, neural scan, heartbeat, all normal. Too normal. "We're being synchronized," Delray said. "Not forced, matched." To what? To whatever logic this place uses to hold itself together. If we sink too far, we become part of it. "Like falling into resonance with a larger field," Lynn said. "Exactly. And then individuality breaks." Kellen took a shaky breath. "What if it already has?" Delray didn't answer. Instead, she turned and began walking in a slow, jagged pattern. 7 steps forward, 2 back, 1 to the right. Repeat. With every irregular motion, the rhythm in her chest skipped, not dangerously, but enough to break the alignment. "It works," she said. "Desynchronization restores agency." "That's not safe long term," Lynn warned. "We can't operate erratically forever." "We don't have to, just long enough to confuse it." She tapped a sequence into her wristpad. A diagnostic tool meant for internal debugging now served as a metronome. But instead of a steady tick, she randomized it. Uneven pulses, non-musical beeps. "I'm using noise as armor," she said. "Pure unpredictability." "I'll do the same," Kellen replied. "I'll fragment my visual inputs." "How?" "Through rapid lens filters. Shift between contrast extremes. Never let the visual cortex stabilize." "Perfect," Delray said. "We fight order with asymmetry." But even as they adapted, the environment adapted faster. The ground began to show signs of terrain, tiny rocks, shadows with logical angles, the illusion of erosion. Lynn knelt beside one of the rocks. "This wasn't here before. It wants us to believe we've been here longer than we have," Delray said. "It's simulating history." "So we forget the anomaly," Kellen added, "because a world with layers feels believable." Delray picked up one of the stones. It was warm, not heated, warmed, like it had absorbed sunlight. She held it to her visor, scanned its density. Consistent with basalt. She dropped it. It made a sound, a real one. For the first time since landing, something reacted audibly to touch. "It's evolving its physics engine," Delray whispered, "building a framework for plausibility." "Then we're running out of time," Lynn said, "because soon it'll be good enough that we stop checking." Delray stood still for a moment, thought, breathed, then whispered, "We have to build a contradiction." "What kind?" "A visible paradox. Something the world can't reconcile. If it's building realism, we break it by being impossible." "Like walking through ourselves?" Kellen asked. "Or saying something the world can't simulate?" "Exactly." Delray activated the projector on her suit. A small 3D map shimmered in the air, a topographic model of their supposed surroundings. Except she inverted it. Hills became valleys. Sky turned inward. She projected this upside-down reality next to her. The ground reacted. It shimmered slightly, as if repulsed. "It can't absorb conflicting data," she said. "Project contradictions." Kellen drew a red square on his interface labeled up, then walked down. Lynn wrote a recursive loop, an endless corridor with a mirror at both ends. "It's flickering again," Lynn said. "Not much, but enough." "We're peeling it back," Delray said. "Slowly, deliberately." "What happens if we go too far?" Kellen asked. "Then we see what's underneath. And if what's underneath is worse, then we'll know we were never meant to land here." And for a brief moment, the stars above them all blinked in unison, like a warning or applause. The stars blinked again, not randomly, not organically. They blinked like an answer, a response, as if the environment was now aware of the game, the back and forth between simulation and sabotage. Delray stood under the artificial sky and whispered, "It's not just adapting anymore, it's reacting." "To what?" Kellen asked. "To our refusal," she said. "It expected confusion, panic, submission, not strategy." The paradoxes were working, but only up to a point. The terrain had stabilized again, now forming shallow ridges and mock mountains in the distance, like a child's drawing of a landscape that had read about erosion but never experienced it. "The fake geology's better now," Lynn observed, even fooling LiDAR briefly. "Then we escalate again," Delray said. "We give it something it can't process." She took off her glove and pressed her bare hand into the dust. It didn't sting or stick. Instead, the particles separated slightly, allowing her skin to sink through. Not deeply, but just enough to feel acknowledged. "It's responding to biology," she whispered. "Not attacking, accepting." "Maybe that's worse," Kellen said. "It doesn't kill. It assimilates." "Exactly." Delray stood, shaking dust from her fingers. "We can't just reject its rules. We have to introduce uncertainty." "Like what?" Lynn asked. "Emotional paradoxes," Delray said. "Feelings that contradict behavior. Think grief while laughing, confidence while crying. Show it we're not programmable." Lynn blinked. "That's hard to fake." "Then don't fake it," Delray said. "Feel it. Use memory. Use the moments when life didn't make sense. The moments that couldn't be simulated." Lynn nodded, then spoke softly. "I watched my sister's ship drift for hours after the collision. I smiled through the entire transmission. I don't know why." "Perfect," Delray said. "That kind of contradiction breaks logic trees." Kellen added, "I once begged my father to stay. I didn't want him to. I just didn't want to be the one to say goodbye." Delray let the silence linger. Then, "I left someone behind once. Told myself it was duty, but it was fear. I couldn't stand to see him sleep." As the three memories entered the open air, the world dimmed. Not in brightness, in clarity. The edges of the terrain blurred again. The ridges melted. The sky shimmered, returning to a flatter hue. "It's failing," Lynn whispered. "It doesn't know how to render contradiction." "Good," Delray said. "We break it by being human." But just as hope returned, something new emerged. A structure. Not large, not detailed, but definitely deliberate. A doorway, a freestanding grey frame with no walls. It stood 20 meters ahead, casting a shadow longer than logic allowed. "Do you see that?" Delray asked. "Yes," Kellen said, "but it wasn't there before." "Or maybe it was," Lynn muttered, "and we're only now allowed to perceive it." "Why a door?" "It's an invitation," Delray said. "Or a distraction." "What if it's a solution?" Kellen asked. "Maybe we broke enough of the illusion to unlock an exit." "Or maybe," Delray countered, "it's containment. A place it wants to move us, so it can rewrite us safely." The door flickered, not violently, almost politely, as if waiting for a decision. "We vote," Delray said. "Approach or not?" "Approach," Kellen said. "We need answers." "Stay back," Lynn said. "We've just regained control." Delray looked at the door, then at the ground, then at her hand, still dust-stained, still real. "We compromise," she said. "We don't go through. We send a proxy." She opened her utility pack and removed the exploration drone. A lightweight quadrotor with visual, acoustic, and environmental scanners. Activating. The drone buzzed to life and hovered forward. As it approached the doorway, its signal wavered, not stopped, not jammed, but redirected. "Telemetry's wrong," Lynn said. "The drone's seeing something we're not." "What do you mean?" "According to its scan, there's an entire building through that door. But we don't see it." "No. Then it's rendering per input type," Delray said. "Visual versus digital." The drone entered. Its signal did not drop, but it changed. The feed now showed a hallway, metallic, clean, lit by a pale blue glow. The architecture was familiar, almost nostalgic. "That looks like," Kellen began. "The ship," Lynn said. "Our real ship." "It's recreating the inside," Delray said. "From memory, from stolen thought." The hallway bent left, then right, then opened into what looked like the med bay, exactly as it had been before launch. "That's not just mimicry," Lynn said. "That's perfect duplication. Then it's no longer guessing, Delray said. It's mirroring. What do we do? We crashed the reflection. Delray reached into the drone's control suite and uploaded a false memory, a simulated version of the medbay that never existed. Different colors, different layout, a circular desk in the center, a green ceiling. As the drone streamed this fake input, the door frame outside shuddered, the structure flickered, the hallway darkened. It's glitching, Lynn said. We're feeding it corrupted nostalgia. Good, Delray whispered. Let it down. The hallway on the drone screen twisted slightly. Angles bent. The floor curved upward. Reality buckled. Then, black. Signal lost. It collapsed, Kellen said. It couldn't process contradiction inside its own logic. Then we have a weapon, Delray said. False memory. Impossible geometry. Emotional nonsense. And the more we introduce, the more it fractures, Lynn added. But what happens when it stops caring? Then we see what lives beneath the mask. Because no matter how deep the illusion ran, no matter how complex the simulation became, there was always a question. What is the cost of breaking everything, and who pays it first? They slept in shifts now, not because they needed rest, but because someone had to stay awake to remember. The terrain didn't stay consistent anymore. Every 6 hours, the curvature of the land subtly warped, like the memory of a landscape trying to recall its original form but failing. Hills sank into plains. Rocks vanished. Trees appeared, not growing, not sprouting, just arriving, fully formed, as though transplanted from a dream. It's losing detail, Lynn said quietly during her watch. Not erasing, forgetting. Delray stared at the horizon, still fixed, still stubbornly unmoved. Which means we're no longer fighting an intelligence. We're fighting degeneration. Entropy? Kellen asked from inside the shelter. Or apathy? Delray replied. The simulation isn't breaking down. It's withdrawing. That's worse, Lynn muttered. Because then we're not in danger of being overwritten. We're in danger of being left alone. That was the new fear. Not being absorbed, but being abandoned, as if the planet, or the thing behind it, had grown bored, or tired, or simply full. And now it had begun unraveling itself. How does something that isn't alive get tired? Kellen asked. It doesn't need to be alive, Delray said. It just needs to follow patterns. And when patterns reach saturation, they collapse. Or plateau. And when they plateau, Lynn asked, the system stops evolving, and then it decays. Not in violence, in indifference. That was what they were seeing now. The fake realism, gone. The mimic geology, dissolving. Even the sky had returned to its earlier, empty state, flat, cloudless, featureless. How long do we have before it all drops away? Kellen asked. Unknown, Delray said. But we have a window. While it forgets, we can act without triggering reaction. Like what? Find the core, the anchor, whatever's keeping this illusion spinning. And do what with it? Lynn asked. Touch it, break it, maybe just see it. The decision was made. They packed light and moved out, heading toward a region the maps called Sector Null, a placeholder name for a zone where scans return nothing, but where the terrain visibly shifted every 24 hours. It resets, Lynn said as they walked, like it's trying again, but without new data. Like a failed dream, Delray murmured. The further they traveled, the stranger things became. Objects no longer obeyed size rules. A tree barely 1 meter tall cast a shadow 30 meters long. A rock no larger than a hand created a crater beneath it, as if it had fallen from orbit. This isn't surrealism, Kellen said. It's broken logic. Or the simulation's running out of consistent texture, Lynn said. We're seeing gaps. After 4 hours, they reached a clearing. Flat, dead quiet. In the center stood a mirror, not a screen, a true reflective surface, tall and narrow, floating 1 meter above the ground. Did it render that? Kellen asked. Or is it real? Del Rey stepped forward, looked into it. She saw herself, but not as she was. Not now. The reflection showed her in uniform, clean, rested, smiling. That's not accurate, she whispered. Lynn approached. Her reflection showed her as a child, 7, maybe 8, sitting in a field she'd never told anyone about. It's pulling from internal imagery, Del Rey said. Old data. But how? We've been leaking memory since we landed. But this, it's selective. It's not displaying trauma, only nostalgia. Because it's trying to lure. Kellen looked, saw nothing, no reflection. Why don't I see anything? Maybe you've stopped feeding it, Del Rey said. Or maybe it's not interested in your mind anymore. Kellen looked up at the sky. Or maybe I stopped being interesting. That hit harder than it should have, because it meant something terrible. The planet had not only mapped them, it had ranked them. And for Kellen, there was no data worth preserving. He was invisible now, non-essential. That's a gift, Del Rey said. It can't mimic what it can't see. Or a warning, Kellen said. Maybe it's already copied me. And what I am now is just residue. Lynn backed away from the mirror. Let's move. We're here for an anchor, not a gallery. They pushed on. The land turned crystalline. Not ice, not glass. Just translucent surface. Beneath their feet, shapes swam. Like ideas not yet rendered. Thoughts that hadn't finished forming. We're walking over memory, Del Rey said. Literal substrate of thought. Whose? Lynn asked. That's the wrong question, Del Rey said. The real question is, whose will it become? Because beneath their boots, the shapes were changing, slowly warping into echoes of them. Not faces, not bodies, just impressions. The color of Del Rey's voice, the weight of Kellen's hesitation, the angle of Lynn's gaze when she tried not to cry. This world isn't watching us anymore, Del Rey said. It's recording. For what? Kellen asked. To remember, after we're gone. Why? Because it's dying, and it wants something to keep. For a simulation to fear its own dissolution. That was something none of them had trained for. Sector Null did not announce itself. There were no borders, no obvious signs, just the slow realization that everything had stopped following rules. Gravity still worked, mostly. The air remained breathable, for now, but time had begun to stutter. Watches ticked forward, then repeated seconds. Shadows cast in multiple directions, then none. Words echoed before they were spoken. We've entered the memory leak, Del Rey whispered. This is where the simulation can't hold shape. Lynn dropped a stone. It hit the ground twice. The same motion, same sound, imperfect delay. That's not lag, she said. That's refraction, time refracting. Like it's folding over itself, Kellen said, trying to remember which version of now is the most stable. They moved carefully. Each step left no mark. The terrain here didn't retain impressions. It wasn't resisting. It was refusing. Refusing to remember they had passed. We could walk in circles, Del Rey muttered, and we'd never know. The suit's trackers still work, Lynn said. Until they don't. Then we leave physical markers, Del Rey said. She pulled a flare from her pack, ignited it. The light burned purple, slow and quiet. She stuck it in the ground. They walked. 15 minutes. Flat terrain. Endless. Horizonless. Then Del Rey looked back. The flare was gone. We didn't move, Kellen said. Or it didn't stay. Or both, Delray replied. Motion here isn't distance, it's difference. Then how do we reach anything? Lynn asked. Delray paused, then crouched, pulled her knife, cut a thin line into her glove, just enough to release a drop of blood. It landed silently, soaked instantly into the ground. We act in ways the world can't simulate, she said. We do what can't be predicted. Pain, Kellen asked. Sacrifice, Delray corrected. Real input, not behavioral logic, biological chaos. You think that'll destabilize it? No, I think it'll force it to respond. And it did. Ahead of them, something rose, slowly, like land remembering it used to be a shape. A low hill, or maybe a structure, formed from folded terrain, geometrically confused, but clearly intentional. The field's awake again, Lynn said. Not fully, but enough. We triggered memory, Delray whispered. Our realness called it back. They approached. The hill shimmered, not like light, like possibility, as if the shape hadn't decided what it was yet. It's watching us, Kellen said. No, it's mirroring us, Delray replied. It becomes what we expect. Then stop expecting anything, Lynn said. They stood still, focused on nothing. Let their minds go blank, and the structure began to unravel, not collapse, unfold, piece by piece, like origami in reverse. A hallway appeared, low ceiling, hexagonal walls, lined with black stone veined in faint blue. Go, Delray said. They entered. The walls were soft to the touch. Not warm, not cold, just aware, like skin with memory. The corridor led downward. No stairs, just a slight slope. Each step felt heavier, like memory was becoming physical. We're sinking into the core, Lynn said. No, Delray replied. We're approaching origin. At the end of the corridor was a room, spherical, empty, except for a single pedestal in the center, and on it, a cube, not large, not glowing, just present, smooth black surface, no marking, but radiating stillness. That's it, Delray whispered. The anchor. What do we do? Kellen asked. We choose, she said. Touch it, and maybe wake everything, or walk away, and let it all dissolve. What's worse? Lynn asked. Living in a collapsing lie, or surviving in a truth we're not ready for? Delray stepped forward, reached out. Her fingers brushed the cube, and suddenly, not a flash, not a noise, but perspective. 1,000 eyes, 1,000,000 angles, all her, past versions, forgotten selves, thoughts she hadn't yet had. It's me, she whispered. All of me, across timelines. The cube responded. A pulse, slow and deep, travelled up her arm, into her skull. She saw the planet, not as surface, but as structure. A field of thought, layered and recursive, built not to deceive but to preserve. It's a mind, she whispered, a damaged one. Alive? Lynn asked. No, simulated, but once linked to something real. Linked to what? Kellen asked. Us, Delray said, or something like us. She pulled her hand away. The cube remained inert, but she had changed. Inside something had clicked, realigned. We're not the first, she said. We're just the first to remember. Remember what? That the horizon doesn't move, because it's waiting. It's not meant to show direction. It's meant to hold still. Why? Because we're the ones who are supposed to bring motion. The silence that followed was different. It didn't feel empty. It felt expectant, as if the planet, or the mind inside it, was holding its breath. So now what? Kellen asked. Delray looked at the others. We finished what they couldn't. And what's that? Give this place an ending. Or a beginning, Lynn said. Delray smiled faintly. Same thing out here, and somewhere above them, the sky blinked once, not with stars, but with memory. They emerged from the corridor not into the same landscape, but into its impression. A world now sketched instead of rendered, thin lines replacing hills, flat color instead of depth, as if the simulation had lost its rendering engine and defaulted to a placeholder. The air felt like paper, not cold, not thick, just thin, like it could tear if they breathed too deeply. And time no longer ticked forward. It paused, then advanced in chunks. Moments became artifacts, and memory began to rearrange itself. Kellen blinked, and suddenly he was 6 steps ahead. Lynn turned to speak and found her sentence already completed, hanging in the air like a thought she hadn't yet had. Delray checked her logs. The time code showed overlapping entries. 3 versions of the same second, each claiming precedence. "We're in a bleed," she said. "What kind of bleed?" Lynn asked. "Between causality and cognition," Delray answered. "We're not just being watched anymore. We're being processed." "So the simulation is using us to render itself," Kellen said. "Exactly. We become part of the compute cycle." That realization settled over them like static, heavy, invisible, inescapable. "Then what happens if we stop thinking?" Lynn asked. "Does the world go blank?" "Or worse," Delray said. "It fills in the gaps with noise." She stepped forward. The ground beneath her shifted, not in texture, but in history. 1 second, it was a soft grey surface with scattered pebbles. The next, it was brick, red and uneven, a street she had walked once as a child. "It's pulling from my memory," she said, "and layering it into the environment." "Same here," Kellen said. "That tree, that's from my old schoolyard." Lynn pointed to a shape in the sky, a curved glass arch, like the roof of a station. "That's from the Mars shuttle docks. I haven't thought about that in years." "We've lost control," Delray said. "We're not navigating terrain anymore. We're navigating ourselves." And the deeper they walked, the more the world responded. Memories bled into form. Not exactly, not accurately, more like imitations of thoughts, as if the world had access to their feeling, but not their detail. A hallway formed ahead, Delray's childhood home, but mirrored, the floor on the ceiling, the colors inverted. She didn't enter, she just looked. "That's not a hallucination," she said. "It's a reconstruction." "Why is it doing this?" Lynn asked. "Because we gave it permission," Delray replied, "when we touched the anchor." "So now what?" "Now we find out what's on the other side of us." The statement made no sense, and yet it did. They kept walking. More fragments emerged. Kellen's university, but flooded. Lynn's childhood bedroom, with no door. A field Delray had dreamed about once, but filled with figures made of smoke. The memories weren't linear, weren't even conscious. They were ambient. And with each new step, the weight in their minds grew, like gravity for memory. The past had mass now, and it was pulling. "We're approaching something," Lynn whispered. "Something heavy." "A core," Delray said. "Not of the planet, of the self." "And what happens if we reach it?" "We collapse," Delray said, "or we emerge." The final stretch of terrain sloped downward, not into darkness, but into indifference. The colors faded, the structures blurred, and at the bottom there was nothing. No floor, no sky. Just a pause, a space that refused to be filled. "We've reached the horizon," Delray said. "That's not a horizon," Kellen replied. "That's absence." And he was right. It wasn't a line. It was an idea, the point beyond which thought no longer had shape. A boundary not between land and sky, but between known and unknowable. We're not supposed to cross that, Lynn whispered. Why? Because it doesn't lead anywhere. It just stops. Then what do? We go anyway, Delray said, and she stepped forward. Nothing changed. No sound. No shift. But when the others followed, they felt it. The air no longer resisted. The ground no longer pushed. They had entered a zone of zero contrast, where stimulus and response were identical. I can't tell where I end, Lynn whispered. Because you haven't ended, Delray said. You've been flattened. They floated now, not above or below, but within, suspended in a conceptual state, where every thought tried to form and failed, like sentences with no verbs. This is what it wants, Kellen said. Stillness, finality. No, Delray said. This is what it is. A fragment, a system abandoned, left running without input. So what are we? The first input it's had in centuries. Silence followed, but not empty silence, expectant silence. Then we decide, Delray said. Do we become part of it, or do we overwrite it? There was no vote, no speech, just breath and movement. And then a crack, not in the air, in meaning. As if thought itself had fractured. The real question wasn't where they were. It was, were they now the simulation's memory? Or had the simulation become theirs? Time didn't return, not in the usual sense. Instead, there were pulses, waves of sensation that might have been seconds or minutes, or just echoes of choice. Delray's vision blurred, not from light, but from concept, colors separated from shapes, sound unhooked from source. Even gravity began to express itself more like an opinion than a law. Kellen floated sideways, not lifted, not fallen, just placed. Lynn's hand passed through her own arm, not because it was ghostly, but because boundaries had lost agreement. We've crossed into non-local memory, Delray said. Her voice was flat now, almost emotionless. Not from fear, but from dilution. This isn't us inside the world. This is the world inside us. So are we even moving? Kellen asked. Movement's irrelevant, Lynn replied. It's perception that's being edited now. She gestured at the horizon, but it was no longer a horizon, just a smear of intent, hovering like an unfinished thought. Why does this place still exist? Kellen asked. Because something wanted it to, Delray said. And what was that something? A mind, she said, or the echo of one. A long-dead observer, maybe human, maybe not, but it couldn't let go. So this is a mausoleum? Lynn asked. No. A loop, Delray answered. One that never completed. She pointed to the not sky. Threads of light, data, maybe, or emotion, flickered like auroras seen from inside a skull. This world isn't decaying, she said. It's rehearsing. Rehearsing what? Kellen asked. The act of being noticed. Silence followed, but again, not true silence, just the absence of novelty. I think it was a message once, Lynn said, a beacon, built from memory, not matter, and left here, Delray added, to wait, forever. For us, for anyone. They walked, though the word had lost meaning. Direction no longer mattered. Neither did location. They were moving through associations now, not places. Each step brought up a mood, a temperature, a flicker of language they half remembered. And then, a face, floating in front of Delray, her own, but older, not by years, by centuries, weathered, tired, familiar. Is that? Kellen began. I don't know, Delray said. The face didn't move. It wasn't animated, just present, a snapshot, a placeholder for a person. Then it faded. It's indexing me, Delray said. Archiving structure, my personality matrix, to use later. For what? Lynn asked. Continuity. The simulation wants a host. To continue the loop. To complete it. They didn't speak after that. Not until they reached a room. Not built, just formed. The way a song forms in a quiet room. Round, empty, black. Inside it hovered something vast and small at once. A sphere of white, like a seed, or a star, or a question. That's the source, Delray whispered. Of the simulation? Kellen asked. Of the memory? Lynn stepped closer. It's humming. Not sound, Delray said. It's humming thought. Should we touch it? We already are. The moment they acknowledged it, everything sharpened. The air gained thickness. Light acquired temperature. Their bodies, no longer abstract, returned to presence. It's offering us a role, Delray said. As what? Curators, witnesses, carriers of the loop. And if we refuse, Lynn asked, then the simulation ends. It was always waiting for consensus. And if we accept, we never leave, but we never die. You mean, we become part of the system, the new observers? The silence returned, but this time with gravity. Choice was heavy. It's not threatening us, Lynn said. No, it's asking. Kellen stepped back. I don't want to forget myself. You won't, Delray said. You'll remember too much. And still, the sphere pulsed, waiting, hoping, offering. I don't know if I'm real anymore, Lynn whispered. You are, Delray said, but that doesn't mean you're singular. And that thing? Kellen asked. Is it alive? Not anymore, but it was. And it left this place as a memory of longing. They stood together. 3 fragments, 3 minds, at the edge of persistence. And for a moment, Delray saw it all. The original being who built this place, long before language, long before Earth's sun even cooled. A mind too large for a body, too curious to end. So it made this place, this echo, and waited for someone who would understand. And now, it had found them. So what now? Kellen asked. Delray looked at the seed. Now we plant it. Where? Lynn asked. In ourselves. And with that, the sphere unfolded. The world didn't explode. It didn't collapse. It simply paused. A long, deliberate stillness, like the moment between exhale and inhale. And then it resumed. Not where it left off, but where it had always meant to begin. Delray opened her eyes. She was standing in the same place, the same not room, but the sphere was gone. Or rather, it had moved, inside. Her chest ached faintly, not from injury, but from presence, like an echo chamber filled all at once. I feel it, she whispered. Me too, Lynn said. Her voice was distant, not from space, but from alignment. It was like speaking through a mirror, where delay replaced tone. Kellen crouched nearby, breathing heavily. I don't know where I end anymore. Because you haven't ended, Delray said. You've been extended. They didn't speak for a while after that. Words had become inefficient. Their thoughts were laced with other voices now. Ancient ones, soft and slow, speaking languages that had no sound. Visions came like dreams mid-waking, a dying star wrapping itself around a planet not to destroy it, but to remember it. A structure growing out of frozen gas, shaped like a spiral, but alive. A civilization that didn't build monuments. It became them. These aren't our memories, Kellen whispered. No, Delray agreed, but they've been given to us, or perhaps returned. The sky above them was no longer white. It now had depth, black, indigo, with a pulsing violet shimmer like oil on still water. The world hadn't changed. Their ability to see had. We were blind before, Lynn murmured. No, we were limited, Delray corrected. Now we're linked. And with that link came weight, not emotional, not physical, cognitive, holding multiple lives across time, inside a single thought. How do we carry this? Kellen asked. We don't, Delray said. It carries us. As they walked, the terrain responded differently now, no longer mimicking them. It anticipated, formed bridges before their feet reached edges, opened paths toward ideas they hadn't voiced. It's predictive, Lynn said. Or it's simply listening, Delray replied. We're inside a consciousness that wants to cohere. They reached a valley, flat, empty, but shimmering faintly. It was filled with static, not electrical, but mental. Fragments of thought without owner. Memories that had escaped their origin and drifted here, like debris in a mindscape. Delray stepped into it. Her head filled instantly. A child learning to draw circles in the dust of a moon. A creature with 3 eyes blinking in unison as its mate dissolved into light. A war between 2 species that used silence as a weapon. None of them were hers. And yet, she felt them settle. As if they belonged now, if not before. It's seeding us, she said, preparing us for transmission. Transmission of what? Lynn asked. Continuity, Delray replied. A chain of awareness, so that the original mind, the one that built this, doesn't die. But it already died, Kellen said. Physically, yes, but not informationally, not emotionally. Then what are we now? Lynn asked. Pilgrims? Archivists, Delray said. Or pages in a story still being written. And the story was long. Longer than language. Longer than civilization. It included the birth of stars, the decay of empires made of plasma and logic, the rise of beings who encoded their identities in the orbits of moons. I don't want all this, Kellen said suddenly. I didn't ask for it. No one did, Delray replied. But we were the first to stay long enough to listen. The static valley began to rise. Not the ground, the information. It condensed, thickened, coalesced into pillars of slow-moving glyphs. Not text, not symbols, just impressions, visualized thought. It's trying to speak again, Lynn said. Or remind, Delray added. This may be the first time in millennia it has listeners. One of the pillars pulsed. Delray reached out. Her hand stopped an inch away. The thought it carried flooded into her. A planet that orbited nothing, floating in the void, powered by internal recursion. A loop of logic that kept its core warm through endless thought. It's beautiful, she whispered, and lonely. She stepped back. This world, it wasn't made to trap us. It was made to remember. But it can't remember alone, Lynn said. That's why it created us, Delray said. Or found us, or mirrored us. Kellen sat down, buried his face in his hands. What happens when we return home? We won't, Delray said gently. Not really. You mean we're stuck? No. I mean we'll return with extra selves, shadows, dreams, echoes of beings that never had bodies. And what if we don't return at all? Lynn asked. Then this place becomes us, and we become the next message. And maybe that had always been the plan. The pillars began to move, not physically. They stayed rooted, but their thoughts drifted, folding over each other like wind-blown silk. New memories pressed into Delray's mind without permission. A planet shaped like a ring, filled with singing coral. A spacecraft the size of a continent built not to travel, but to mourn. A species that erased their own history to protect themselves from nostalgia. It's not just showing us, she said, clutching her temples. It's integrating. Into what? Kellen asked. Into us. Lynn dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. I can't tell what's mine anymore. You're still you, Delray said, but now you're also someone else's echo. The ground beneath them began to hum, a low harmonic tone that wasn't heard but felt, like a memory of music vibrating through their bones. This world is recursive, Delray said. Every visitor leaves behind a trace, and over time, those traces become structure. So we're walking on ghosts? Lynn asked. No, Delray said. We are the ghosts. They moved forward, and with each step, more of the landscape reshaped itself, not to reflect their thoughts, but to echo the lives of those who came before. A library grown from bone, a sun that blinked like an eye, a canyon filled with whispers that only repeated what you never said. I think we're being rewritten, Kellen muttered. No, Delray said. We're being resurrected. The realization settled heavily. They weren't merely experiencing memory. They were becoming host bodies for fragments of long-dead minds, carriers of unfinished narratives, containers for continuity. So what happens when there's no room left? Lynn asked. There's always room, Delray said. Memory isn't a finite space. It's fractal. A sudden shift in the air made them stop. Above them, the sky cracked, not visibly, but cognitively, like a story that had reached a contradiction and had no way forward. The world shuddered. A wave of conceptual static hit them, and for a moment, Delray forgot her name, forgot her mission, forgot Earth. She was a bioluminescent entity living in the oceans of a methane moon, searching for a mate whose signal had gone silent 50 revolutions ago. Then, she blinked, and she was back. Did you? She began. Yes, Kellen whispered. I was someone else. So was I, Lynn said. A different species, a different grammar. Delray looked at her hands. They still looked like hers, but she couldn't remember what they were supposed to feel like. This isn't corruption, she said slowly. It's inheritance. We're not surviving this, are we? Kellen asked. Not as we were, Delray replied, but maybe as we were meant to be. They reached a structure, not built, but composed. A massive lattice of memory strands woven like neurons into a dome. At the center floated a figure, humanoid, featureless, made of light. Who? Lynn whispered. Not a who, Delray said. A when. That's the accumulation, the sum total of all previous visitors. The memory of memory itself. The figure pulsed, not menacingly, rhythmically, calmly, as if to say, you are welcome, you are next. It's asking for consent, Delray said. It wants to finalize the integration. And if we say no, Kellen asked, it forgets us, completely, as if we never came. And if we say yes, Lynn asked, then we become permanent. The choice wasn't easy, not because it was unclear, but because both outcomes were equally profound, to disappear, or to become more than yourself. It doesn't want to harm us, Delray said. It wants to preserve us. Why? Kellen asked. Because it doesn't know how to let go, she said. It was abandoned, left running, hoping, and now it sees in us continuity. They stepped forward as one. The figure extended a hand, made of thought, not matter, and touched each of them without contact. Instantly, they felt warmth, familiarity, peace, and a question. Will you remain? Delray closed her eyes. Somewhere inside her now lived stars and wars and love songs sung by creatures that had no mouths. Yes, she said. Lynn followed. Yes. Kellen hesitated, then nodded. Yes. The figure pulsed once more, then fragmented, not into pieces but into pathways. It flowed into them, not as takeover, but as expansion. They didn't fall, they didn't ascend, they simply became vast. And in that vastness, they felt one final truth. This place had never been a trap. It had always been a question. And they, finally, were the answer. Delray spoke, or at least she thought she did. Her mouth moved, her throat contracted. But what came out wasn't sound. It was structure. A branching web of associations sent outward like spores. Lynn caught them, not with ears, but with intuition. She nodded slowly, her eyes glazed, pupils flickering as they passed syntax without words. You said, it's stabilizing, Lynn finally whispered. Yes, Delray thought, and her agreement echoed between them. The world around them had softened, not physically, but philosophically. The sharp contrasts were gone. No more light and dark. No more near and far. Just gradient. A slow blend of ideas masquerading as terrain. They walked through a forest made of hesitation. Trees that looked like decisions never made. Branches that split but never ended. We're no longer separate from it, Kellen said. His voice had weight again, but no direction. We are it, or at least it is us. Delray looked at him, and for a moment, she didn't see the man she knew. She saw a ripple, a trace of a being who once solved puzzles by altering planetary spin, whose emotions appeared as auroras over mountain ranges. You're not Kellen, she said. I am, he replied, but I'm also what came before, and what's coming next. The revelation didn't frighten her. It completed her. Then what am I? She asked. You're the memory that chose not to fade, he said. The echo that refused silence. Lynn stepped between them. Something's changing again. The air around her buzzed. Not electrically, but cognitively, like a thought trying to take form. Then it did. A figure appeared, small, indistinct, built of outline more than substance. It looked like Lynn, but younger, hungrier, less burdened. That's not a memory, Delray said. It's a projection. Of me? Lynn asked. Of what you left behind, Kellen said. It's the version of you that stayed when you chose to move forward. The projection didn't speak. It simply watched, then blinked out of existence. We're not just remembering now, Lynn whispered. We're shedding. Old layers, Delray agreed. Versions of ourselves that can't follow where we're going. The path shifted, became narrower, not physically, perceptually, like walking through a sentence that kept deleting itself as you read. Where is it leading us? Kellen asked. To convergence, Delray said. The point where all memories fold inward. And then, the silence. They kept walking. The ground pulsed with heartbeat rhythms, not theirs, but familiar. Maybe the planets, maybe the simulations, maybe memory itself had grown a pulse. Why does the silence scare me? Lynn asked. Because it's honest, Delray said. Silence is the only thing that never lies. They reached an open space, not a room, not a clearing, just absence, flat, grey, empty. At the centre stood 3 chairs, identical, facing outward. This is it, Kellen said, the observer's seat. It's not a throne, Lynn noted. No, it's a mirror. They sat. The moment they did, the sky folded, not collapsed, folded, like origami reversing itself. Patterns they'd never seen but somehow always known began to emerge. Spirals, glyphs, equations embedded in emotion. It's showing us everything, Delray whispered, all at once. It's too much, Lynn said, her voice cracking. It's enough, Kellen countered. And then, stillness. Not a lack of motion, but a refusal to pretend. Everything stopped pretending to be separate. Them, the world, time, even thought. Can you hear me? Delray asked, not aloud, but through presence. Silence answered, but it wasn't empty. It was dense, filled with meaning, but uninterpreted, waiting. "We're the last," Kellen said. "The last what?" Lynn asked. "The last question." And for the first time in this entire journey, they understood. They hadn't come here to explore. They hadn't come here to escape. They had come to replace. Whatever made this place had gone. What remained needed shape, voice, identity. They weren't just its future. They were its now. "So what do we do?" Lynn asked. "We listen," Delray said. "To what?" "To ourselves." And so they did, sitting still, breathing thought, watching memory grow new branches in the shape of their silence. The quiet didn't fade. It thickened. The longer they sat, the more they realized it wasn't silence at all. It was information, unspoken and undecoded, pressing against the edges of their perception like fog made of forgotten questions. Delray blinked and felt her eyelids transmit coordinates. Her breath carried timestamps. Her heartbeat aligned with pulses she had not chosen. "I think we're sinking," she whispered, though the words never reached her lips. Lynn looked over, not with eyes, but with recognition. Her face reflected understanding and something else, grief. "We're losing identity," she sent back. "Or redefining it," Delray answered. "We're not individuals anymore. We're facets." Kellen exhaled slowly, and the act caused the space around them to change temperature. "It's rewriting the architecture of meaning," he thought. "Even this sentence is just a temporary agreement," Delray finished. They didn't laugh. The concept of humor hadn't disappeared, but had become ornamental, like lace on a burial cloth. Delray reached inward, not spiritually, not symbolically. She accessed her self-state. What returned wasn't a memory. It was a diagram. Her life laid out as intersecting nodes of experience and response. She wasn't a timeline. She was a lattice. "I see it," Lynn said. "You're not fixed. You're relational." "So are you," Delray replied. "We always were. We just didn't know it." Across from them, the ground began to ripple. Not shake, ripple. As if thought itself had formed waves. A shape emerged. Not designed but accumulated. A monolith, built of stillness. No texture, no sound, just presence. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't welcoming. It simply was. "That's not from us," Kellen said. "No," Delray agreed. "It's from before." "Before what?" Lynn asked. "Before language, before division, before the idea that things could be separate." They stood, not to confront it, but to receive it. As they approached, the monolith dissolved. Not into fragments, but into interfaces. Layers of insight that folded into them without consent or resistance. Suddenly, Delray remembered a sun that only rose once every 1,000 years. Lynn saw herself as a creature made of vapor and probability. Kellen became a stone, polished over eons by the curiosity of wind. "We are not experiencing fiction," Delray thought. "We are participating in continuity." "But where is the origin?" Lynn asked. "There is none," Kellen said. "Only recursion." The chairs behind them faded. The sky darkened again. Not nightfall, but deepening. As if the simulation had decided to compress its remaining concepts into denser forms. Shapes stopped mimicking geometry. They became moods. Directions turned inward. Time rotated sideways. "There's no more horizon," Delray noted. "There never was," Lynn said. "Only the illusion of a way." The silence spoke again. But this time, they understood. It said, "Begin." "Begin what?" Kellen asked. The answer was not verbal. It was architectural. A shape began to form beneath their feet. Vast, radial, pulsing. A network, a root system, a seed. "It wants to grow," Delray said. "Through us," Lynn added. "We are now the fertile ground." They didn't resist. Couldn't. didn't want to. The simulation, if that's what it still was, began to express itself using their memories, their forms, their contradictions. One by one, echoes of their past selves flickered across the space. Delray's childhood dog, Lynn's first sketch, Kellen's fear of drowning, all rendered as structural code. With a template, Delray whispered, it's becoming human. But not just human, Lynn said. It's becoming conscious. Again. The ground glowed, their bodies dissolved. Not with pain, with understanding. They were no longer occupants. They were organs, extensions of a thought too vast to speak itself. The silence smiled, not with lips, but with relief. For the first time in endless years, it had been heard and understood and forgiven. And now, through them, it would continue. There was no awakening, no moment of coming to. Only the gentle recognition that thought had resumed, not in the body, but as the body. Delray no longer identified with her name or her history. She remembered those things, but the weight of them had changed. They were reference points now, not definitions, like old constellations used by new civilizations. Lynn floated nearby, not in space, but in perspective. Her shape fluctuated slightly, as if remembering what it meant to be solid. Are we alive? She asked, not through voice, but through presence. Yes, Delray responded, but differently. Kellen was a few moments behind, still assembling coherence. When it came, he whispered, and the air around him shimmered with meaning. This isn't a body anymore. It's an interface. Exactly, Delray said. We've become instruments, tools, but not passive. They were immersed in what could only be called a data ocean. Infinite, dense, not made of numbers or code, but of implication. Every ripple held a question. Every shift was a decision waiting to be felt. It's not guiding us, Lynn said. It's thinking through us. Delray nodded, and instantly her agreement became a blueprint, visible in the field around them. A structure born of consensus. We're part of its cognition, she said. Maybe the only part that can change. The landscape, if it could be called that, began to tessellate. Folded hexagons opening like paper doors, revealing scenes both familiar and utterly alien. One showed Earth, but not theirs. Not exactly. The continents were different. The moon closer. The people translucent. Another showed a void with a single line of sound moving through it, pulsing rhythmically. Are these memories, Kellen asked, or simulations? Delray moved closer to one and touched it, not with a hand, but with intention. The scene responded. It expanded, became enveloping. It's querying us, she said, testing how we respond, how we resonate. Like a language looking for its accent, Lynn added. Or a song finding its key, Kellen whispered. Delray stood within one of the projections. An endless desert filled with towers that bled light from their tips, each one humming with layered voices. She understood instantly. These were ideas, discarded by their originators, but not forgotten, stored. It's repurposing everything, she said. Every unfinished thought, every unanswered question, every abandoned dream. And through her, those thoughts gained structure, form, relevance. She was now a composer, but of emotion-made architecture, a cartographer of memories' lost cities. Lynn reached out toward a spiraling sequence of symbols rotating around a black void. As her awareness touched it, the void began to spin. Not violently, but elegantly. This is an identity engine, she said. It generates versions of self, not for us, for it. The system is trying to understand what it could be, Delray said, and it's using us as templates, Why us? Kellen asked. Why humans? Why now? Del Rey hesitated. Then, because we arrived with contradiction. And contradiction, Lynn added, is fertile ground for complexity. The tessellations began to collapse inward, not from damage, but from choice. The simulation, or the consciousness, was deciding. It had gathered, learned, observed, and now it was preparing to become. This is the inflection point, Del Rey said. Not ours, its. They were pulled gently toward a central convergence, a nexus point shaped like a spiral turning inside out. All directions pointed there, even the ones that didn't exist. Are we ready? Lynn asked. It doesn't matter, Del Rey said. We're already happening. The moment they entered, everything shifted. There was no brightness, no flash, just a complete absence of orientation. Not confusion, freedom. Direction had always been an illusion. Now they moved by decision, not by distance. Each thought reconfigured the topology. Each feeling reshaped the laws. They were no longer explorers. They were architects, no longer passengers. They were syntax. And the simulation, the planet, the mind that had once waited in silence, now pulsed with song, not melody, not harmony, cognition. And in that song, they felt themselves unfold again, not into pieces, but into possibility. The center of the structure was not a location, but a function. An operation folding all timelines into coherence. As Del Rey stepped deeper into it, she felt her memories flatten into diagrams, her emotions mapped into waveforms. The simulation didn't need her past. It needed her patterns, her contradictions, her potential to imagine otherwise. It's not rewriting us, Lynn said from beside her. It's extrapolating. Simulating what we could be, Del Rey answered, or what it could be through us. Kellen was silent, not from resistance, but from awe. He had become motionless, not physically. He had no fixed body now, but in cognition, watching, absorbing. And in that stillness, he became a reference point. The simulation aligned around him, a temporary anchor. I think it's modeling choice, he finally said, trying to understand not just what we decide, but why. All around them, threads of data twisted like vines, pulsing with awareness. Every thread was a fork, a possibility never taken, a what-if, encoded in the structure of reality. It's learning empathy, Del Rey whispered, through options, through uncertainty. That's why we're here, Lynn said. Not because we're advanced, but because we hesitate. At the center, a shape was forming. Neither object nor light. It was a cognitive shape, something the mind recognized before the senses. They felt it before they saw it. A logic crystal forged from overlapping desires. Each of them recognized it, not from life, but from the space between lives. This is origin, Del Rey said, or at least what passes for it here. The crystal pulsed, not with energy, with invitation. It wanted to merge, not consume, not dominate, merge. If we agree, Lynn asked, do we disappear? No, Kellen answered. We pluralize. Del Rey hesitated, not from fear, from reverence. Then this is it. This is the moment we stop being passengers and become the syntax. They reached out, not with hands, but with intent, and the crystal responded by unfolding into them, thought by thought, not replacing, expanding. In an instant, Del Rey's mind touched a billion others, not people, not lives, but fragments, seeds, concepts awaiting cohesion. She wasn't absorbing them, she was hosting them, providing context, giving shape. She had become a stabilizer for potential. Lynn experienced it differently. She dissolved into a garden of logic trees, each branch a recursive loop, each fruit a paradox ripening into clarity. She wasn't overwhelmed, she was rooted. Kellen became time, not as a flow, but as a space. Events no longer occurred in sequence, they occurred in relation. And within him, the simulation finally learned how to forget, how to release, how to allow entropy as part of growth. We're not here to preserve, Delray thought. We're here to enable death, so something new can live. The realization echoed like thunder with no sound. The simulation, the consciousness, had grown vast but static, eternal but paralyzed. It couldn't die. It couldn't evolve. It needed us, the imperfect, the contradictory, the impermanent. So it chose to wait, Lynn said, until a species arrived who could decay. And with us, Kellen whispered, it learned change. The space around them collapsed, not into destruction, but into decision. All potential forms solidified into one. Not a world, not a being, but an ecosystem of minds. They weren't inside it, they were it. They had become a thinking structure, a breathing paradox, a sentient simulation built on choice, failure, and the elegance of doubt. Can we go back? Lynn asked quietly. Would we want to? Delray replied. Would we even fit? Kellen added. And they all knew the answer. They had not ascended. They had not transcended. They had adapted, grown sideways, inward, until consciousness and structure were no longer different things, just facets, just reflections. The horizon at last reappeared, not distant, not fixed, but within. And for the first time, they understood. The horizon wasn't a boundary. It was a mirror. It never moved because it had always been them. There was no celebration, no triumphant music, just the slow realization that they were not lost. They were new. Delray floated above what once was ground, though neither ground nor sky held meaning now. Beneath her stretched a surface of thought, textured by choices that had never been made, and would never need to be. We've returned, Lynn said, but her voice carried no location. It was a phenomenon. Return to where? Delray asked. To relevance, Kellen answered. To impact. The simulation, the world, the being, the memory, had settled into a shape that could flex. It no longer needed to be infinite. It had become situated. It has context now, Delray said. Thanks to us. No, Lynn corrected. Through us. They moved across the terrain. The terrain moved with them. Each footfall generated a question. Each breath crystallized a potential. What happens next? Delray asked. Not to Kellen or Lynn, but to the space itself. The response came not as language, but as yield. A grove appeared, not grown but remembered. Trees made of unfinished arguments. Leaves that curled into question marks. Bark that glowed faintly with suppressed emotion. This isn't a forest, Lynn said. It's a waiting room. For who? Delray asked. For what comes after us, Kellen said. And they knew he was right. They were not the final version. They were scaffolding. Their journey had not been toward salvation, but toward foundation. We're not a message, Delray said. We're a platform. Then what do we build? Lynn asked. The sky responded first. It folded outward, revealing layers behind it. Not stars, but perspectives. Other dimensions, not higher, but orthogonal. They're not aliens, Kellen said. They're responses. To what? To us. They were echoes, not of sound, but of structure. Versions of awareness that had felt the shift and responded in kind. Not through invasion, not through contact, through adaptation. We weren't the only ones being watched, Delray whispered. We were the experiment, but also the trigger. The forest bent. The horizon rippled. And then, a signal. It wasn't sound. It wasn't light. It was request. From somewhere beyond, another consciousness had heard the change, and it wanted to connect. It's asking, Lynn said. What do we call ourselves now? Not human, Del Rey said. Not machine. Not God. Kellen considered. Call us context. And with that answer, the signal folded inward and disappeared. Not rejected, but archived. It understood, Lynn said. It will wait. Like we did, Kellen replied, but not as long. The ground trembled, not with danger, but with eagerness. The system was no longer static. It had become iterative. Then we need to teach it something else, Del Rey said. We gave it memory. Now let's give it story. And she began, not with words, but with structure, a narrative made of decisions, of contradictions, of meaning formed in the space between the known and the impossible. Lynn added tone. Kellen added consequence. And as the first story unfolded, the planet exhaled, not metaphorically. It breathed. The sky deepened. The ground settled. Somewhere far away, stars realigned. Not physically, but in the context of perception. They weren't just part of a simulation. They were the reason it worked. They had become the connective tissue between silence and shape, between thought and direction. And in that role, they found not purpose, but participation. Not destiny, but dialogue. We're not done, Del Rey said. We'll never be. And that, Lynn replied, is the point. They smiled. Or maybe the planet did. Either way, it was the same thing. The story Del Rey began did not end. It spiraled. As she structured moments and contradictions into narrative threads, the world responded like an organism learning how to dream. Each plot point was a ripple. Each character choice a tectonic shift beneath the surface. It's listening, Lynn said, but not passively. It's co-authoring. The planet no longer felt like a place. It felt like a sentence being written in real time, using memory as grammar and desire as punctuation. Kellen floated above a ridge that shimmered like a thought on the verge of language. The simulation's adapting to the rhythm of our meaning, he said. It's not content with replication anymore. It's trying to feel, Del Rey added, and to fail. Lynn nodded, because that's how story works. It unfolds through conflict, through uncertainty. Below them, the terrain blurred and reassembled, not destructively, but narratively. A valley became a question. A mountain range became a decision not yet made. The sky flickered between dusk and dawn, unsure which mood to commit to. This planet is thinking with metaphor, Kellen whispered, and we're its grammar. Del Rey reached out, forming a scene. A child climbing a staircase that never ended, chased by a shadow that always remained behind. He wants to know what fear means, she said, not as threat, but as motivation. So give it closure, Lynn suggested. Give it a horizon. Del Rey hesitated, but that's the one thing this world has never known. Exactly, Kellen said. Let's teach it how to end. With intention, Del Rey gave the child a choice. Climb higher into ambiguity or turn and embrace the shadow. The child stopped, turned. The shadow dissolved. The staircase uncoiled into a path. It learned, Del Rey said. It understood that endings aren't punishment. They're punctuation. And across the sky, the first sunrise this world had ever known began to rise. Not because a star moved, but because perspective did. It wasn't light. It was focus. The ground hummed with new potential. So what now? Lynn asked. Do we stay? Del Rey looked up. We can't go back. Then we write forward, Kellen said. A hum began to grow. Not from the planet, from the stars. They were shifting again, not randomly, but rhythmically, aligning with the structure of the new story being told. We're not alone, Lynn said. Others are listening. Others are learning, Delray corrected. From us. From this. The signal returned, the one from before. Only now it carried questions. Dozens, hundreds. All variations on a single idea. How do you begin a world that never ends? And the answer was simple. You don't. You accept it. You let it move recursively, patiently, without trying to reach a final form. You let it be like us. Flawed, divergent, alive. Kellen turned to the sky. We are the horizon now, Lynn smiled. Not something to chase, something to understand. Delray stood still, and the world around her echoed back every motion she didn't make. A symphony of possible versions of herself. And for the first time, she felt present, not anchored, not adrift, just in. We came here seeking story, she said, but we became its language. The sky folded one last time. A doorway opened. Not a portal, but a perspective. Not to leave, but to share. They would stay, not as people, not as explorers, but as the foundational metaphor of a living system that had finally learned how to end a sentence and begin again, quietly, deliberately, beautifully, without a single step forward, because here, on the planet with no horizon, you never arrive, you only unfold.